3 pictures of Moses. I can't tell you how many places. And can you tell me anyone where I can go to get this? And without skipping the beat, the guy said, I've got a guy who'll do it for you. Takes the pictures, takes them back to Jim and says, Jim, you need to get these framed. And Jim says, how? You figure it out, you can do it. And I mean, I just remember it was unusual shapes, there were angles and curly things. He did it. And the guy came back and was just thrilled going through. I mean, he was an artist with his framing. That's just what it was. And he got into that passion. But then coming up to Eureka, my older brother had shared too that coming to Eureka was very cathartic for Jim. He found even more of himself up here, and just this was home for him, and just the family and the people that he met. You guys became, not that we were estranged by any means, but you became really family for him, and that was really deep and really special. I appreciate that. I'm going to share one other story that may explain some things about Jim. I don't know if he's told people have seen about his elbow and all. Well, he fell out of the tulip tree in the front yard, and he did a job, and he shattered his elbow, broke his wrist, and broke the upper bone. And so when they took him to the hospital, they said, we've got to wait for a specialist. And he was, 70 years old at the time. So I mean, this was a long time ago, 60 years ago or so. And when the specialist finally got there, he said, I'm concerned about the elbow. It's already starting to reset. And my concern is if we try to do anything now, it's going to make it worse. So we're just going to cast it and go through. And so when he finished, actually his elbow was here. And my dad said, and he could only bend about like so. My dad said, okay, when you can touch your shoulder, you get a silver dollar. And so Jim worked and finally touched his shoulder and said, Dad, where's my dollar? Where's my dollar? Where's my dollar? But it happened just before Christmas. And when he would sleep, he had to have his cast tied to a shelf attached to the wall because he could not move his arm at all. And they were concerned if he slept, he would be doing too much. So he was tied to this shelf. And in our family, on Christmas morning, the tradition was the kids don't get up, my dad brings the sleigh bells. So we're all in bed. At this point, my brother and I are in one room. Jim and my sister were shared the other bedroom. And we're waiting, and Dad rings the bells. And we go tearing out there and grabbing our stockings and going through it and this, and we hear this. He couldn't get the thing untied. We forgot we had to untie his arm. We all went running in and apologized. Oh, I'm sorry. And going through. But it's just one of those things of getting up and getting set with it, with what we have and what we do. He was Uncle Jimbo to my older daughter. He was the only one that...
He hated the nickname?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
So of course it had to be used?
With all of that.
We went from that to sword fighter.
Right.
Yeah.
I was in that show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's when the elbow really became hot.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just like to invite you, if you want to share stories, thoughts, memories about Jim. We'll let Bill kind of eat through his breakfast a little bit, and then maybe at that time we finish that, we'll have you in place with James to go through. Just if you have thoughts, memories you want to share, please do so. We just want this to kind of be organic and a celebration of Jim. That's all we want to do. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
So you never know. Really?
My background was more in the acting area, but I ended up with some back trouble, so I had to drop out of Mamma Mia that I was cast in
think I met Lonnie at the same time, for those of you that know or remember Lonnie. And well, we went through a long history together. We used to go down the coast. We both had Sunday, Mondays off, so we would go down the coast on a Sunday, as everybody would be. So we had the whole thing to ourselves. So. Anyway, my wife told me a while back we're no longer married, when I first informed her of Jim's condition, that she said, well, you know, he told me years ago that he wanted Sweet J.D. Baines played at his memorial. So I don't really know the song prior to this, so it ain't making the excuses now. So I wanted to thank my neighbor Cindy for helping me out by typing out the lyrics and stuff in case I need to fall back on them. And she has been so helpful through this whole ordeal. I couldn't have done it without her or Greta. And if I fail to mention anybody else, Mr. John Reed, of course.
You guys did the bulk of the work.
He jumped in and took care of all the legal schmeagle stuff, and so anyway, it's nice to see this gathering, and I'll give it a shot.
I don't think anybody will think of Jim without me calling him Sweet Baby James now.
One of the things that song in the very beginning, the Cowboys, I just remembered, I used to sell shoes at one point in my life, and because when shoes at that time, and it probably still is the case, if they've been in your inventory more than 6 months, they get marked down. So at one point I had 48 pairs of shoes, 3 pairs of cowboy boots, and I had my favorite pair of cowboy boots with tan leather with a buckle on the front, square toe, loved them. and I was away for a while, and Jim said, "Can I borrow your boots?" I said, "Sure." Same size, you know, I'm the same size as you. Well, I found out my brother has bigger feet than I do. Because I came home after, I think it was the summer or whatever, and everything, and he'd been wearing them all the time, and they no longer fit me. They were now his boots. Going through, but, yeah, so it's just, thank you, Bill, it was good.
That was
Nice to do
wonderful.
so.
Thank you.
And I know I've shared a little bit here and there with a few people backward, but anyone else something you want to share, a thought or memory about Jim?
Sure.
Yes.
Besides all the stage work he did, he was involved with an outfit called the Victorian Village Mysteries that was set up in Ferndale for about 11 years. And it was a murder mystery event. He still got the shirt.
Wear the sweatshirt.
Yeah. So they weren't just like one evening dinner. It was a 3-day weekend using the whole Victorian village of Ferndale. Sometimes even the police were in on it. They would come and do arrests and put up tape and everything. So anyway, one of these episodes was set in the 1920s, and I was a divorcee, bootlegger person with a lot of bad habits. And so naturally, James's character was very attracted to me and hung around with me a lot. So one of the things that I had set up with the people who ran the murder mystery and wrote it, and shopkeeper, was that I was going to shoplift in one of the stores. And so I had permission to steal stuff from a certain shelf in the store. And so anyway, the shopkeeper got a little too participatory, and I was having trouble making my escape with the thing. And I guess during the distraction, James didn't realize that we couldn't steal just anything, apparently. And so, and yeah, he had no idea I had an arrangement. So later, after finally the shopkeeper, I guess, got tired of improv, I finally escaped and met up with James somewhere, and I was looking at the item that I made off with, and he reached in his pocket and showed me what he'd stolen. I said, okay, we have to get that back sometime soon.
I'm sure he enjoyed stealing it too.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
was
he would
very
have,
pleased.
yeah, he would have been right with the role going through. He had a great time. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, we had our characters had a disagreement at one point in the murder mystery, and another thing I'd asked them to set up for me in a different store was, I said, because I'm going to have a fight with James, can I break something? And I don't know if I told him. So I threw a vase at him, shattered on the floor, of course.
Would have been a good reaction of him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very authentic, yeah.
Yeah, very, very much so.
His rapport with Vic Howard in My Hamlet really just helped make that show, because they just really played off each other so very, very, very well. I'll always be appreciative of the shows he was in that I directed, because he was a solid anchor in the shows I directed, every one of them.
Being on stage with him was a joy too, because he was just solid. You just knew you could throw anything at him and he'd throw it right back at you. It was just, Drawer Boy was just that culmination of perfect storm things that happened, and just three of us on stage, and it just sang.
Chemistry.
It just sang. He'll always be my Angus. He always called me Morgan, I always called him Angus.
I was sharing over here that you grew up with somebody that has a talent like that, and you kind of, in the back of your mind, you know, well, yeah, I can have fun, I can, and this and do that. But I never really understood how good he was until the first play I saw that was Christmas Carol. And he played Christmas Present. And I went, oh my gosh, he brought that character so much to life that it was just, oh, and then it hit me, he's got a real talent for this. I mean, I should have known this all along, but he's my brother. Why didn't I know that? Well, but yeah, it was really something that you just enjoyed it.
He was
And
the real
as
deal.
I had shared earlier, Joe had written about the theater is the pulse of his heart.
Well, yeah, I think he was such a magical creature. There were so many layers to him, and he had such a life force that you don't encounter. And for me, like there's a lot of my life is just sort of fuzzy and vague and blank, but I remember watching him in A Christmas Carol, and one of the things that struck me is that was him, though. Like that exuberance, that laugh that he did, that was his laugh.
Yeah.
He had that shake the earth laugh. And it hit his eyes, it hit his face, it hit his body. Like he was just, there was so much inside that man. And when you're a kid, you think, oh, well, everything is this way, right? Like you're normal, you think is the world's normal. And I didn't realize, not everybody has an uncle that directs you in little plays on Christmas morning in your grandparents' condo living room. Like not every child grows up like that. But there's not anybody like him. There's not anybody like him. And I think that's why we were all struggling. How do you pin that down? How do you solve a problem like Maria?
Yeah.
How do you pin down in words that man?
Yeah. Jim,
Right.
or
Yeah.
is it James, or is it Jimbo, or is it...
Well, I think in honor and respect of him, no, we'll let Jimbo go now. I don't know if you can roll over in an urn, but he's at least going to shift around in there. So we'll just...
Well, I think he finally came to terms with that. Because one of my friends that helped me move up here called him that. And he goes, And he said, I don't know why that bothers me, so I guess your dad used to call him that.
Yeah, I know. I can remember my dad going, Jimbo, and he wasn't thrilled then. And I don't know why he didn't like it, but he even young, he did not care for it at all. My dad always would do Jimbo.
Yeah.
Not all the time. He'd go Jim or James. My mom, we knew when she said our full names. That's a whole other story. But my dad was a pet name my dad had. My dad wasn't angry, but I don't know what it is as to why Jim, he just did not like it.
Yeah. But I think he finally came to terms with it.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
anyway. And writer, he was such an excellent writer.
Yeah.
I have a lot of his stuff that he left at the house when we roommated together in the Bay Area back in the 70s. And there's this town called Pescadero. It's on, you all know where that is. That might be where the ankle accident happened, where he tripped on the cliff and broke the ankle, and it's swollen to this day. When I was taking him to the hospital and doctor visits, they look at his feet and he goes, oh, well, it's always that big. So he wrote this poem about Pescadero, so I said, do you mind if I put that to music? So I did that with a couple of his poems. So yeah, it was an honor. He was a great guy. Anyway, I'm glad we're all here to celebrate.
Yeah.
Speaking of James and poetry, I played his romantic partner in a play. And one of the interesting things that he did every night for his character, for my character, was he wrote a short poem and put it in a little matchbox, because it was set in 1911, so there wouldn't have been matchbooks. And put it on my sewing machine. I played an immigrant sweatshop worker. And I forget if the the audience knew about it or not. I don't honestly remember if I picked it up and looked at it, but he knew it was there, and I knew it was there, and it added so much to what was going on. And, you know, it was always kind of like getting a little present, you know.
I love that. Yeah.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
he did as a
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
And it just, the little extra things.
Yeah.
I've never had an actor do something that cool in any show I've ever done, so.
I think
That's beautiful.
I think Gloria and I were lucky to join in on the project the role that he was born to play.
Yes.
John Sidney Barrymore.
Oh,
Um,
you love Barrymore.
yeah,
We did.
actor, legend, seducer, corpse. I didn't know until auditions for the play that I had never noticed that James looks exactly like him. And had apparently studied him all his life. He had all these old film clips, and he could imitate him playing Hamlet like he did back then. And it coincidentally, as we were doing this play, and I never missed a night. That was just such an amazing performance and production. But it happened that our production schedule coincided with the night that John Barrymore died, the anniversary of it. I was especially worried that night that you know, James might just evaporate on stage or something. But no, he was there till the end, and it's a wonderful memory.
You said you were lucky to work with him. I would consider that. I was very lucky. I directed James in several productions, and I'll miss him as one of the greatest actors that I've worked with, certainly in Humboldt County. And he used to, you learn as a director, you work with a good actor, you just stay out of his way. You know, don't mess it up. Let him do his thing. It makes my job very easy. He always made my job easy. But you could watch him work on stage in rehearsals as he built a character. He tried this one night, the next night it would change, solidly, the next night it would change. And I love to watch that process. It was fascinating because I could see him get better and better and better, more and more character. I used to tell young actors, watch this guy in rehearsal, watch him, watch what he does, because he was exceptional. And sometime last fall, we had brunch at a restaurant in Eureka. It was a Sunday. That night, he started feeling short of breath and went to the hospital, and there was a heart attack. And I visited him several times in the hospital, a couple of times. I want to thank Greta. Some of us are here today because of Greta getting the word out, but also he referred to Greta at least half a dozen times as my angel Greta. So thank you. Thank you for what you did for him.
Believe me, I'm no angel.
Well, you were here with Karen.
Well, you did a good acting job.
I'm an actress. That's right. No.
Jim was sweet.
I promised Basha that I would read the letter that she wrote. And I think as I read this, you're going to see echoes of everything that's been talked about with Jim through here. But she still has, I had not been in contact with her years. I mean, yeah, I mean, they ended up breaking up.
Well, yeah, I remember her, so more like maybe 30 before.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she has a jacket, which I happened to bring, that she gave Jim when they were together and they were engaged. And I'm not going to go through a full explanation because she talked in the letter what was going on. But she decided at this point she wanted to give it, she ended up with it after they broke up, and she wanted to give it back to him. So she did a search, an online search for James Michael Reed, and found the obituary, the online obituary. And because I had put it up there and there was an email address, she got a hold of me. And you could tell very gingerly in the beginning, does this family want to even talk to me, I don't know if you remember everything, but she did, and so she wrote this out and said, I really, really want, if you would please read this on Saturday. So, here goes. James Reed and me. I met James, see, he had already been going over to James when he was down there. Old brother, old dogs sometimes just don't learn new tricks. I met James when he worked at Barclay Simpson Fine Arts Gallery in Lafayette, after he worked for many years at Frame City in Pleasant Hill. I worked for the Perry Group Advertising and Graphic Design in Lafayette and designed all promotional advertising for Barclay Simpson Gallery. I attended all the gallery art show openings and found James to be a delightful and handsome character. I love the idea of character. I decided to invite him out to lunch in 1985, and we began a 2-year-plus relationship that I cherish memories of to this day. I truly loved him dearly and have glorious memories of our good times together. Whether it was watching him perform in a streetcar named Desire at the Willows Theater in Concord, or our big chill trips with friends out to the East Brother Light Station in the San Pablo Bay after Christmas each year, or on the amazingly romantic trip we took one July, glamping on the beaches from Big Sur up to Mendocino with a magical stay in a cottage on the dunes of Cleone near Fort Bragg called Doonesbury Hollow. The trip culminated with a few nights at the Benbow Inn in Garberville, where we stayed in the, she has written Nigel Rathbone. I think she's confused Nigel Bruce and Basil Rathbone together. She stayed in that room. And James recited lines from Basil Rathbone's movies. I just see Jim doing that, can't you? He's just sitting there, here we go. He wrote poetry, took long hikes, and played our song, Ricky Lee Jones, It Must Be Love, over and over. Needless to say, I was enchanted by him every day. I knew him as Jim, James, Blake, and Polo Keegan, his pen name, and one that he would use when we were out together. Depending on the day, just for fun, we would be Jim and Janet, Blake and Betty, or Polo and Basha. My Hebrew given name is Basha, and at the time, he was the only one that called me by that name. Later, after the Oakland fire, I would change my name legally to Basha. She lost everything in the fire going through. We would go see his dear friends, Bill Jason, Chuck Phelan, and the guys play in their band, Avenue, is that the name of the band?
Yeah.
And had too many fun adventures to list here. James was James and was one of a kind, delightful, fascinating, and beautiful man, and unlike anyone I had ever met before or since. Ultimately, we parted ways in late 1987, but we only spoke a few times after that. I thought of him often, and always thought he would be there when the time was right to reconnect, someday. I visualized that he was living his best life up in Eureka and was happy. Glad to hear that John confirmed this for me. I was living in San Francisco when we broke up. I ended up with the, quote, Reed brand leather jacket I had bought him early in our relationship and which he wore with love. I feel it was a part of him, and I still feel his energy in it. I wore the jacket for years like a security blanket, and it was the only thing of value that survived the Oakland fire when my home was incinerated in October of 1991. It's because I was wearing it on a trip to Australia and England when the fire happened. I wore the jacket after the fire constantly, and it was a comfort to me. Over the last 30 years, the jacket has remained in my closet, and I had never had the heart to let go of it, though by many moves, life changes. I'm blessed to have found the true happiness. Recently, I decided I wanted to send James the jacket, with a note wishing him well after all these years, hoping that he would be pleased with the gesture. And on August 27th, I Googled him to see a current address, and the obituary popped up instead. My heart sank, and tears flowed. I posted the photo of James on the Legacy website and had been thinking about him over the last week with so many lovely memories that I hadn't thought about in decades coming to mind. My husband Bruce has listened to all of my stories this week and been very supportive as always. I'm hoping one of the extended Reed family, nephews or nieces, would like to have the jacket as a memento of their Uncle Jimbo. I now believe I kept it for this reason. As especially due to the timing of my recent mental connection to him and his passing. His bright light will live on in all of our memories forever. Always in my heart, Basha Cooper. I think it just echoed a lot of what we've been talking about with Jim, you know, going through with that. So, other people, other thoughts, memories to share.
I have a couple.
Yes.
So I'm probably the newest to the Jim saga. We moved in the duplex. Lonnie was with him at the time. And so I said, oh, hi, I'm Cindy. He says, I'm James. That was about it. And he turned, he had to get to work because he's still working at Michael's at the time.
Oh, yeah, I love that job.
And my daughter says, who is that guy? I says, it's James. But many times I would see him going to work at Michael's, and it was the time when I would always think of him as Dapper Dan. I don't know why, but he dressed very dapper.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'd go out there and I'd say, well, aren't you just looking fit as a fiddle today? And he would like do a little jig, get his cars go. And then his back door and my back door meet right there. There's a fence, which he wanted to remove. Said, no, we don't need the fence anymore, but we never got it. But he reminded me when we talked through the fence, he was my Tim the Tool Man. Tim the Tool Man Taylor, I could only see his eyes, and he would talk to me, and I'm thinking, yep, that's my Tim the Taylor guy. So, and then, he loved my food, and he said, is it hot and spicy today? Because I take him a lot of food over there, and he and Lonnie loved it. And one day I took him something, I can't remember what it was. He says, well, I've already eaten. He says, but we'll take it, maybe we'll eat it tomorrow. Okay, so I left it with them, and I don't know what happened. I turned around and I knocked on the door, and he opened it. He's got a mouthful of that. And he said, oh, this is just wonderful. I said, I thought you were going to save it. He says, well, I couldn't. So we had many a talk through the fence. It's just such a sweet guy, and it's unfortunate that I never got to see any of his productions. I would have loved to see that. So every time I go out to the grunt, and sometimes I go out there and I'd be singing, and then all of a sudden he'd be piping in, singing with me. We'd just be singing. Yeah. It was a good relationship we had. Very sweet.
You were a tremendous support too, because I remember Lonnie talking about you.
Yes.
And you have become an artist you just mentioned today. So we thank you for taking such good care of his brother, their uncle, mom and dad's son, and my brother-in-law. So thank you all very much.
Yes.
Articulated it for what you just said. Earlier when you made your first remarks, you talked about his coming up here and that he wasn't estranged from the family, but that he found a family. There are some actors here that I've been in plays with, and I, 30 some odd years ago, was in a play with James. I subsequently knew him, my wife and I, as a framer. But the kind of special bond that occurs with people in theater, among people, is basically based, I think, on trust. And you, even if you never are in another play with that person, or even if you don't even socialize with that person again, there is an enduring bond because you have thrown yourself out into their hands, their being, as an act of trust, and at its best, it's reciprocated. Sometimes it doesn't happen. But for those people for whom that happens, that's a bond that is uniquely human. It happens in the theater. It doesn't happen in a lot of other places. And so it is a powerful connection too. Even though I haven't seen Arnie in a long time,
That's true.
there's still, Gloria was a mere child when I saw her last. And on and on, Randy, and I never worked with James, but, so yes, he did have a family, and it's the kind of family that is nurturing and enabling and empowering. So yeah, we have family.
Yeah, it works the other way too. I'm sorry, I don't know your name,
Oh, my name's Allison. I'm Joe's wife, Allison.
but you were talking about the Humboldt family and, well, for us, or for me, I only know James from Humboldt. And it's wonderful, it's very nice for me to see from before Humboldt and some family, because I've learned things about James today that I never knew before that makes him even more interesting to me. So it works both ways, so it's very nice.
Thank you for bringing us all together.
Yeah, thank you. When I came up, I said, you know, it's gonna be kind of hard, but I said to Bill and Greta both that I want to spread a word. My younger than I actually had this weekend planned to go camping.
Yeah.
And so she was off work, I'm retired, so my schedule is fairly fluid. But we knew it was gonna be some time, I thought, you know what, that's the weekend, we're just gonna do it that Saturday, so you have to try and spread the word and get out that, because I didn't want anyone up here, because you are family, and we are family here. I didn't want anyone up here to feel like, well, look, Jim's biological mother came up and took him up and ran off and just left everything, you know, because that wasn't right, because you're family. And so we had to do something going through it. We had to. Yeah, we just wouldn't do it.
I'm glad you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank
Trust
you.
us, if he turned out to be jerks, we'd have done it without you.
So what you're saying is that maybe another gathering in a couple of weeks? I just want you to, now, as I should, I'm a retired Presbyterian minister. I'm really the only one in my family that remained any kind of connection with the church. I know Jim was not a religious person. He was a very spiritual person, but he was not a religious person, and wasn't necessarily Christian or non-Christian. But there's something that I share at services, and it's a story. What it is to me is comfort of the idea that, and I'm very open. I mean, God is God. What God decides to do, God decides to do. And far be it for me to argue with God and say, I'm sorry, but that's not the way I think in my theology. It doesn't work that way. But I believe there in God. I believe there's a spiritual aspect that God is watching us and with us. And it's a story I want to share when I was in seminary. I worked at a church in West Covina and was working with the youth department. And there was a family, they had 5 children, and the mother and father worked with me in a youth family. And the father said, did I ever tell you how our 5th child, what happened when the 5th child was born? And I go, no. And he goes, well, okay, let me share the story with you. So he said they had 4 children, 4 daughters. The mother was turning 40, and they had always, in our family, my mom always wanted a daughter, and finally got a daughter. In that family, she always wanted a son, and we had 4 daughters, but she's turning 40, and said, okay, no more children. This is it. We're done. And so about 8, 9 months later, the wife pulls the husband over and says, guess what? He says, what? He says, we're going to have a 5th child. Well, they were a little concerned because of her age, and so they didn't tell anything to anybody for the first trimester. And the first trimester, they get the family together, and the girls are there, and they said, okay, Mama's going to have another baby. You're going to have a brother or sister. And this little girl says, oh yes, we're going to have a baby boy. Oh, okay. Well, Mom and Dad know better, right? Because 4 girls, pregnant, 5th girl, got all the girls' clothes out, got things ready, had talking about babies' names, always girls' names. That's it. This is what we're gonna do. Time comes with birth, baby is born, and it's a boy. And the hospital's saying, well, what are you gonna name him? And they're going, I don't know. And they sent hemmed and hawed and came up with the name John. And so they named him John. So Dad goes home, gets the girl, says, Mom's had the baby. Yes, it's a little boy, you named him John. He goes, how did you know that? Well, that's easy. When I was up in heaven with God before I came to be with you, I knew him. And there's a Psalm 121 that says, God has you going out. It's written to villagers who go out of the village at the beginning of the day, go out into the fields, go out where it's not as safe, there's danger, until God will watch you going out till you're coming in. And that just hit me that God watches our going out, in that presence of God, whatever we are, whatever it is, we come into this world and watches us as we go back in. And I saw Mom and Dad being those messengers, those angels that brought him back into that presence of God, of the being that's there and all. And it's a comfort to me to know that he's not gone. There's still an existence of Jim. There's that spirit of Jim that's still alive in somewhere. Forgive me if I get preachy, but it's hard to break the habit. Anyone else have anything they want to hear? I want to welcome those who came in. We kind of got an earlier start than we were necessarily expecting, so I apologize, but there's some food still around. If you want food, have food. But I'm his older brother. I'm the second of the three sons coming through, and my wife and my two daughters. But if there's things you want to share or want to talk about Jim or anything, please do so. Please do so.
Well, I'm not good at stuff like this, and I'll get upset too, but I'm big sister. I met Jim 30 years ago. We did a play, played my dad. It was called Artichoke. Ferndale Repertory Theater. It was really nice. He had his wife sew me a little teddy bear. The production was over. I still have it. I should have brought it. I didn't think of it until I got here, to be honest. As you all know, because he didn't have a grain of bad in him. He was one of those people. I should probably stop talking.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
No, it's.
Okay.
He was good clear through, as they say.
That's really interesting because you were in Artichoke with it, right?
Louis Agnes?
I was with him in Artichoke 30 years ago.
Yeah, so was I. Hi, Jeremy.
Are you Jeremy?
You're the
It's good to see you. You don't look that much different.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
Did you get it? That's my daughter Willow. That's my other daughter Marina. Just like you. Second oldest is very important. 30. Yeah. Yeah, right. Jim is loving this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you would. Someone doesn't want to let go, do they?
Oh yeah, of course. I'll move that out of the way for you.
Well, I think it is. Never seen somebody do that. You sense family.
Yeah.
You sense family. These are safe people. These are good people.
Yeah.
These are family people. That all love each other. And I think that's really special, isn't it? I will say, that was one thing we were really looking forward to, is that there is something about people in the theater who are always, they're always supporting one another. And I think that's what it seems that nobody's performance is better. You're all there to make the whole performance good, and to feed off each other to make everyone shine. And the love and the bonding, even if you're only in one play and it is 30 years before, you don't forget. The person may get old. professions have that, you know? Because either they're a cutthroat profession where you're trying to get better than everybody else and make your way ahead of everyone else. But this is, you are all tied together in a common bond to make that production the best it can possibly be. From the directors down to the lighting people, and the fact that you're all working together and have to work together and become respectful of each other's talents, and then grow to love each other. And fall back, that whole thing is the trust experiment, where you have to fall back in somebody's arms, and you have to trust that they're gonna hold you up. You have all held each other up, you know, and have become such a bond with one another. And I think that is just amazing. It is a privilege to meet all of you. And thank you so much for all coming out to share with us, because you helped heal our hearts. So, thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. You're not going to remember this. But
To who were you speaking?
To you.
Oh.
But it was one of the times, it was when their father had passed away. And everyone came down for a family reunion at our home in Southern California. And Uncle Jim and I had gone to a Sunday service where you were preaching that day. And he and I walk in, I remember it distinctly, he's wearing this white crisp linen suit with a nice blue button up, a little denim checkered, and his hair is all nice, salt and peppery, slicked back with the curls at the end, you know, the nice beard, and he and I walk in together, and he has me in his arm. We sit down next to my mother. Well, a hymn comes in that neither of us knew, and he looks over at me, he goes, "Do you know this?" I said, "Nuh-uh." He goes, "Okay, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna teach you something." I said, "What?" He goes, "You're just gonna say peas and carrots the entire time, and your mother will still think that you're singing." So we did. And we did peas and carrots the whole time, and we started giggling in the middle of it. And my mother, yeah, and we just went, and we just stood there silently trying not to laugh.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Trust your Uncle Jim to teach you that.
Uh-huh.
Between Uncle Jim teaching you that and my father did stick your tongue out when I'm taking a picture of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were both Jimbos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right, I forgot. My dad was a Jim also.
That's
And
right.
Jim only let my dad call him Jimbo because he had got stuck with Jimbo also.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's what Grandpa taught me too. One day he came to service. I had to stand up on the pew because he was so much taller than I was, and he said the same thing to me. He goes, "I'm going to tell you a secret. Just say peas and carrots the whole time." So, yeah.
So there's a little bit of weirdness in the Reed family.
Oh,
There's a lot of it, yeah.
Well, I didn't want
the
to
force is
admit
strong.
that.
Well, I mean, now that we're already a family, I guess all the secrets are coming out of the woodwork, so, you know.
That's true, yeah. Yeah. I just want to say thank you for coming and allow us to take this going through. So he was a very unique, wonderful person going through. We kept talking the last couple of years at Christmas. So you able to come down for Christmas? Because obviously I can't go anywhere at Christmas. I got too much at the church I got to do, and so other family would have to travel. If they went with my older brother or whatever, and say, I think I'm gonna make it for Christmas this year. Then invariably would be, "Oh no, I'm not gonna make it down for Christmas this year." But it was phone calls with more of the contact the last few years and going through. So, but to echo back what I was saying earlier, there's never a feeling of, "Oh, poor Uncle Jim up in Eureka," because he had family, he was cared for. I at times think of my older brother in San Diego. Now his son is living with him right now, and that's good and bad. And he's got some friends. But my older brother is much more of a loner, and there's times we get worried about Jeff being down in San Diego by himself. But I have to say I've never worried about Jim being up in Eureka by himself because of you
He
folks.
wasn't by himself.
No.
No, exactly.
Well,
That's what I
that
mean.
was wise, because
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
a sense of that
Yeah.
oh, you know, the isolation there. He's
Yeah,
all,
no,
he's
he
surrounded by
was
love,
family.
family. And
There was a sense of a loss of, gee, I wish he wasn't so far away, we could get up and see him more often. But there was never a sense of caring for Jim or going through, which bore out obviously in these last 6-7 months or more of going through with his health, of how people just rallied around him going through. So.
And I'll tell you, if you guys didn't live so far away, we'd come up and visit more often. That was it.
None of it's ever really that far.
Oh, no, it isn't, no. Well, it isn't, you have a very small bladder.
There's solutions for that.
But it was wonderful to finally get here for so many reasons. But I can see why you have all stayed here. It is family. It feels like home.
It's
doesn't,
so
you know,
small town, you know everyone.
Yes,
Yes.
and I love that.
And they know you.
Yeah,
so-
well, that's good and bad.
Yes.
But,
It's easy to be alone in San Diego, it's not
Yeah.
easy to be alone.
No,
It is not.
right,
Yes.
right.
Someone will
It's
always
just-
see you that knows you.
Yes.
Very
Yeah.
small town,
Yeah,
20 years ago kind of thing.
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's very appealing to us. We're
Yeah.
not, let's say,
Yeah.
big city people.
yeah.
And so we've always wanted to, you know, live like where you see an old town where everybody says hello to you as you're walking down the street.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody kind of knows your business, so, you know, make sure you drape your clothes before you go to bed at night. But the fact that everybody cares, well, one thing, that we live in a town in Vallejo, and, you know, parts of Vallejo are great, parts of it are not. But there is one little restaurant that has probably the same thing that you guys have in the sense of this gentleman comes every day to have his cup of coffee and his sweet roll. And he hadn't shown up one day. This is just a waitress. She doesn't know him from Adam, except for every morning. Hi, Ed, how are you? Here's the thing. He doesn't show up at 9 o'clock in the morning. By 9:15, she is on the phone trying to find out where Ed is, even though she doesn't know Ed's last name because he's not here. They found him in time.
Yes.
Got him to the hospital. He's fine. He's now showing up for his cup of coffee.
Nice.
But that's a small town
Yes.
thing, where if you don't see somebody, okay, I know. If he hadn't gone to this Scottish restaurant every single morning for his sweet roll and his coffee, nobody would have missed Ed.
Yeah.
You know, but because that was his routine and it was the same place,
Yep.
he was not lost through the cracks. You know, so here, definitely, none of you are ever gonna get lost through the cracks here, because you will all have somebody looking out after you and seeing you and saying hi, and have you seen so-and-so? You know, I haven't seen them for a while, let's check up on them.
Yep.
So that's great. That's a very nice feel. And it has that feel, as soon as you drive in, it has that feel.
Yep.
And if I can find places around here, because I get lost coming out of my own driveway, you know, it's really nice, really nice.
Yeah, it gets so nice where you don't even, oh, I'm not gonna go to that big road, the 101, I'm just gonna go down that street. Yeah.
You look enough like James, you could probably go to the theater tonight and be recognized.
Yes, he would be.
Well, did John ever tell you the story of his mother and father when she was pregnant?
Oh,
I told,
a little bit.
when we first
Yeah.
got here, I said it, but I hadn't,
Okay.
yeah.
There's a picture floating around somewhere of our family when we were younger. If you haven't seen it, go ahead and pass it around.
And that even
But I-
doesn't do them
Yeah.
justice as far as the mother and
But
father.
basically, we joked in our family that God used a cookie cutter on all the kids. Because there's no doubt we are Reed children. And my mom and dad were first married. She was
And
very-
they look, both his parents look like that. Like, I mean, like, they looked very, very similar. That's how all the kids came out looking the same way, because.
My mom was pregnant with my older brother, and my dad was helping her up the stairs into church one Sunday, and two little ladies behind him said, my dad heard this, said, "Isn't that sweet that brother's helping his sister up the stairs because she's pregnant?" They look so much alike. And so it was just, here's a cookie cutter. I mean, you know, this is what it is. And I joked that we pulled it back out to do that one as well, going through.
Well, my mother swears that actually I slept with John's older brother, because she was a little bit old. But yes, they all look very much alike. So yeah, we'll just put a little goatee on John.
Yeah.
And then he
And
can
it's,
get-
my dad is John, my mom is Jean, with J, Jeffrey, John, James, and Jennifer. And they signed the Christmas cards one year, the 6 J's, and nobody knew who it was. We got this Christmas card, they said my mom or my dad, and it said the 6 J's. Well, who is that? Well, that's us. Who are John, Jean, Jeff, John, Jim, and Jennifer Lynn. Oh, yeah!
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So. Man, I just, again, say thank you very much for coming, for sharing with us, and for being part of Jim's family. And just remember, his spirit is still with you, and we can just celebrate his life anytime we want to, just by bringing him to memory.
Thank you for bringing us together.
Yes.
God, we're late. I'm so glad that you all found out where to come, because I took what was said in the obituary.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
About all of that, which I actually put in a feature that I wrote about James, Jim, the J. So I was really concerned that people wouldn't know where it was. Oh yeah, good, somebody figured it out. We sent more emails back and forth.
You should have seen Facebook.
Yeah.
I did, it was ridiculous. Anyway, I stopped by the Times Standard yesterday, which I usually do if I have something that I've written that I want to, keep in my archives. But what I did yesterday, I picked up a bunch of that issue of Urge, which has the feature about him in it. And also, so I have the card. I have 16 copies. I just grabbed that. So those of you who have not picked one up or can do so, just simply it will be in at the Times Standard. If you go in the front door, and there's a rack right by the front door, and so the Urge, usually it's inserted in the Thursday newspaper, but everything that's there, it's online too. So it was something that it's really interesting because I was simply looking at something that I had written last week about something in Ashland, and I went online and I was just checking to see, how it looked before it went out, in a hard copy, and something just told me, for whatever reason, I had the front page online, and for some reason, I looked at the obituary title up there, on the top of the thing, and just something told me, click on that. And I did. There was no earthly reason for me to do that, seriously. And I started scrolling down, and there it was. And it was like, yeah, I was meant to see this. I was meant to do this, and I am going to write something absolutely, because there's no way to count all the people he touched. And I felt it was my responsibility to do something. And I was in a show with him. I played Mrs. Higgins and My Fair Lady, and he was like the gruff friend of and so we spent a lot of time sitting around waiting and being really angry at the director making this. Why did you call us? But we had a great time together. But the thing that always struck me about him, I never know whenever I'm writing about anything what I'm going to say. It's just there, and I see and out it comes. And it was easy in an odd way. It didn't make me sad. It gave me a lot of, I won't say pleasure, but satisfaction.
Certainly the joy, though, too.
To be able to,
his joy.
to do that. And And it's probably one of the best things I've ever written because I didn't write it. It wrote itself. And anyway, what an extraordinary life he lived and lives on within everybody that he touched, one way or the other. And it pleases me to know that people who did not know him or didn't see him in anything, if they read what I wrote, I'm sure they had a sense of him. So he added to his family in that way too. So anyway, thank you for not paying total attention to what I said what time we were going to be here. So anyway.
I'm glad you made it. It just, I guess maybe there was confusion. It's awkward. Where do we go? What do we do? And it just kind of evolved this way. So.
One story I would like to share about Jim, and this isn't even really my story, so my husband will probably want to interject, because this is a story about Jim when he was younger, and my husband was, I will not use the sarcastic phrase that I was going to say, this was the first woman that he was engaged to, and Jim was over at the house, and to show you how unpretentious Jim is and was, Jim was Jim for everyone. He was not going to be a mask and be a certain person for one person and another person for another. He was going to be
We were at my fiance's parents' house having dinner there.
And then they were all sitting down having dinner, and it was a very proper, nice dinner. And Jim realized all of a sudden he didn't have any milk. Wasn't that what it was? And he just gets up from the table and he walks into their kitchen, gets the milk out of the refrigerator, comes back, pours himself some milk. And, and he was much younger, of course, than John. 7 years younger?
No, 3 years.
3 years, okay, I'm sorry. And so, but it was one of those, that was Jim. You know, now my family, my mother always said, you will starve if you go to someone's house and they don't offer you something to eat, or you will die of thirst. Because you will not eat or drink anything unless they offer it to you. And Jim was Jim, I'm thirsty, I want some milk. Well, I'm just gonna go get some milk, you know.
I was mortified.
John was mortified, but Jim was Jim, and they didn't mind at all.
It was perfectly fine, yeah.
But he was just, Jim was who he was with everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that was never a role. The only time he played a role is when he was in a play. Yeah. Otherwise, he was Jim, in all the many facets.
And on that note, I remember one time, this was back in the 70s, or 80s maybe anywhere. He had driven down from Eureka to Martinez, about a 6 hour. And there was a bunch of people at my house, you know, everybody was partying and stuff and having a good time. But of course, Jim was dog tired after the drive, so he lasted about an hour, and we're all looking around like, where's Jim? So little gathering continued, and people were beginning to leave, so I thought, well, I'm going to bed, I'm tired, so I go into my room, and there he is, asleep in the bed.
Maybe it's not at all.
Exactly, which was fun.
Yeah.
Jim was Jim.
Jim was Jim, yeah. And I think that's part of the appeal.
So I just thank you for coming to celebrate James Michael Reed. We really appreciate as a family the gathering here, and as some of you have shared that you've learned things about Jim you didn't know before, we've learned things about Jim that we kind of were aware of but had no specifics, no details or anything like that to go through. So that's added to our family as well. So I just want to say thank you and blessings on everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, John.
Thank you very much.